today it's all about using Stratum for new users. So with that, just agenda for today. Intros. Not going to ask everyone to introduce themselves, but a number of you on the phone know me. My name's Frank Bunker. I do a bunch of these classes along with some of the other folks over here. And I'm responsible for the development effort here at Sylvan, along with a number of other things on both on the pre and post sales side. But I think the point is I've been around the product a long time, so should be able to give you a good overview of what it takes to get started and some of the basic features in Stratum, just to be able to use it and get some good info out of Stratum. So I'm going to start with a real quick overview about what is Stratum. I'm going to spend most of my time on using Stratum. Talk a little bit about some of the learning resources we have out there that are available, do some Q&A if there's time, and show you the agenda for part 2 and some different ways you can contact us. So I certainly encourage everyone that's on the phone to take a look at the contact us stuff, or don't hesitate to contact support with questions, etc. So with regards to what is Stratum, let me just kind of show you the really high level overview. And Stratum in a nutshell is 2 key things. It's a repository of information. So it's a place where you can collect information into what we think of as a data hub, and that hub can be populated a bunch of different ways. And that information is then aggregated and basically optimized for reporting. And that is something we call flexible information delivery. And flexible information delivery gives you the ability to get to the information a lot of different ways. The key way we're going to focus on today is the web-based viewer that you guys hopefully are familiar with. And I'm going to show you just some real basics in there today. And then part 2, we'll dig into a little more detail around using that particular, or using the interface. So when we think of Stratum, there's the collection side and this repository or data hub where we put all this information. Business rules are applied to it. It's consistently updated. There's also ways for users to update it. These are all different techniques you can use to get data into the hub. And then ultimately you can get data out through the web-based analysis. You can get reports emailed to you. You can use Excel. You can use dashboards. You could use something like Power BI to get information out of Stratum. So there's all these different options where, as I mentioned, we're going to focus on the outbound side today, because I think everyone on the phone, that's what you're interested in terms of how do you get information out of Stratum and how do I use the viewer that has been shown to me. So with that in mind, there's a couple key features about the viewer, things you're going to need to get started. The very first thing you're going to need is the link or the URL to get to Stratum. Typically it's HTTP, your Stratum and some numbers or something like that. But whatever it is, you're going to need that. I can't today tell you what it is. It's unique per customer. And then ultimately you're going to need a login as well. So this is typically your Windows login, or if you're one of our hosted customers, it's one of the logins on your hosted version. But that said, if you don't have that, you're going to need to get that from your admin. Again, there's nothing Sylvan can do. Certainly you can send us an email over here at customer support and we can notify your admin, but ultimately we can't create the admin for the login for you. That said, once you get to that link and you're able to sign in, you should get something that looks similar to this screenshot I have in this particular slide. And that should allow you to see all of this list of things down the side, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. And then something like this. This is our standard homepage. Your unique implementation might have its own homepage over here, but this is a bunch of the learning resources I mentioned earlier, and we'll talk about those a little later. The other thing that you really know is, okay, so let's just assume you've gotten to Stratum. There's 2 major things you care about in Stratum, at least for the purpose of what we're talking about today. One is, what's the data you have loaded in Stratum? And almost everyone that we work with has sales data loaded. But there's a lot of other types of data you can have in Stratum. If you were to go through the list of people on the call today, you'd find out that I'm going to guess everyone has sales. Some people have orders. Some people have budgets. Some people have inventory and GL and AP and AR and production, and just about any kind of stuff can be loaded into Stratum. If there's data you're looking for, either another type of data or additional data related to the data you already have in Stratum, you need to let your admin or Sylvan know, and they can make sure that either you're unaware, maybe you're unaware, of where that information is, or that you need, there's another piece that we need to get in there. And that can be done pretty easily, but we need to know that there's something you're looking for that's missing. So that's one thing. Again, every customer loads up uniquely their information, so I can't go into a ton of detail on specifically what's in your version of Stratum, but hopefully you guys have some doc around that, or someone's been through it with you to show you that. And then the second thing you really care about, and where we're going to focus our time today, is what we call views. And you can think of these as reports, but this is the way that you get information that's in Stratum out of Stratum so that you can use it and take advantage of it. And to that end, I'm going to jump over into Stratum. At least I think I am. And see if I can't show you a couple of things here that should make using Stratum a little bit easier for you with regards to how you get information out of Stratum. Let me just get into my copy of Stratum here. Apologize for that. Okay. So here we go. You can see that I'm in Stratum. So I've gone, I have a URL or a link, as I mentioned. I have a sign in, and I've come to Stratum. So that list of things down the side where you have views, we call each of these things down the side view groups. And everybody has these. So everyone on the phone has access to view groups, no matter what version of Stratum you're in. And you'll see if I click on one of these, it opens up. You have different groups listed here. And the groups that you have are dependent on how you've been defined to Stratum. So if you're not seeing something you expect to see, or a group that someone else sees, you should let your admin know, and they should be able to give you access to that. But you can see I've got lots of groups down the side here, and this is one way you can see views. The other way you can get to a view in Stratum, and ultimately we're going to run one of these views because that's the way you get information out of Stratum, is through this recents and favorites. So first thing is, if you're not seeing recents and favorites, you should let your admin know. The admins are going to love me since I've talked about contacting them a number of times here. But anyways, you need to get an upgrade. You're on a very old version of Stratum if you don't have this favorite and recents up here. So you can see here, this now provides me a list of views that either I've marked as favorites, and we'll see how to do that so you can populate this window, or things I've recently used, which is actually how I work a lot. And when I'm using Stratum in our internal version here, because I tend to go in, if I've got a project, I'm researching something, certain set of products, certain promotions, certain set of customers, I can go in, and the view I've been using to do that will be in my recents, or any views I've created will be listed there, and I can see what I was using yesterday, this week, obviously last week and older. So this populates automatically recently, and you have to populate favorites, but it's a very simple thing to do. So the other thing that I wanted to mention is a view can live in all three places. So if you look here, if I want to run this view called comparative sales, for example, you can see I've got it because I've run it recently. I've also got it here in my favorites because it's some of my marked as favorites, and it's also in one of my view groups. So every view lives in a view group. So these view groups down the side ultimately have everything in here, but you can see I've got it here and I've got it here. Now, the fourth way you could get to views is you could use search, and I could search on comparative sales, for example. If I knew the name, and you'd see I could get a list of those. If you don't have this search box, I highly recommend, again, you speak to your admin or let Sylvan know so you can get upgraded and get this feature. This was a highly requested feature from the customer base that we added. So you could search for views and find either views that were specific for you or a specific name, something like that. So let's talk about running a view. So we've talked about getting to a view, but let's talk about running them, because once you run a view and then you're in it, that's probably what you're really on the call for. But I wanted to say one thing about running a view. When you run a view, and again, you can run it from any of these spots, a couple of things can happen. One is I can run a view. I just clicked on comparative sales and you'll see that it ran that view and brought back the data for that view. By the way, if you want to give yourself more screen space, you can click on the Stratum icon over on the left, up in the left there, and you'll be able to get more space. But that said, I ran that view, I clicked on it, and it brought back some data. And in a minute, we're going to talk about how you can change a little bit of what you're looking at here, how you can sort and filter some of those things. But I think it's important to know when you're running views, there's another entry into this that can happen. So one thing is you run a view, you get data back right away. That seems really simple. The second thing is I run a view, and I'm going to click on this customer review here. And when I click on that, before the view actually runs, this particular view is going to ask me, hey, I need some more information, because this particular view, in this case, I get what we call a prompt, and it's focused on a specific customer. So it's going to require me to enter a customer. And there's a number of things I can look at. And I've set up this example just so I can show you. So one is, if you see this little down arrow here, you need to pick from the list here. And this is a list of customers I can choose from. The other way it could come up is saying, hey, what you need to do is select a customer. So in this case, and it could be customers, products, it could be anything. My particular example happens to be customers. But when you see a box like this with a little funnel next to it, which, by the way, anytime you see a funnel, when you want to filter in Stratum, we always use that funnel icon. So the funnel, to funnel down what you're looking at, is there. So in this case, I could click on the funnel, and it's going to say, hey, you can search for a customer. And I can search for, I don't know, I'll search for one of my main customers called Wilder. I have to come close to the spelling for it to show up. And you can see I have it here. And then I can select one. I can select multiple here as well. But this particular view is going to want me to select one customer. Now I've selected a customer. I click OK in my selection box there, and it's now going to run the view and show me the information for that specific customer. In this case, it added the customer into the view filter up here in the filter line. So you can see there's that customer I selected. It happens to be Wilder Foods. So that's what happens when you run a view and it has a prompt associated with it. And that's something you can set up, and that's a more advanced topic that we'll get to later. But some views that you run might have that in there. So the other thing is, if I go back to recents and favorites now, you'll see over here in recent, customer review is there, which is the view that's underlying this right now because I just ran it, and as is comparative sales. So both of those showed up, and because in my recents, because I just ran them. So let's run comparative sales again, and you'll see up at the top of the screen, if I want to get something into that favorite list, so I don't have to go searching for it or find it in my big long list of stuff over here on the left, you can make something a favorite. And this one happens to be favorited already, if favorited is a word. And you can see that because it's got a gold star. And if I go into favorites, you can see, as we mentioned earlier, there it is in my favorites list. If I click this star right here, it's going to take it out of the favorites list. And now I can open the favorites list, and you'll see it's no longer in my favorites list. I can add it back just by clicking on the star. So that's how you get stuff added to favorites and recents. So that's a key thing. I think favorites and recents is a really good way for people to work because it prevents you from having to go search for whatever you did before. I see a lot of people do that, and it's always that way, always listed there. So the next thing, three key things we want to talk about when I'm in a view. One is drilling. We tend to say drill down, but you can drill up and you can drill down. And that means I want to move through the information that I have in Stratum. So I want to get to another level of information or back to a previous level of information. The other is I want to sort. You're familiar with sorting, ascending, descending, but we want to know how to do that because I want to see my top. Typically, people want to sort in descending order so they can see the top performers first. And then the last thing we want to do is filter. I might want to look at data just for a certain set of products or a certain customer, or a certain region, or whatever it may be. And I want to know how to do that. So let's talk about those things. Let's start with drilling. So I'm looking at a view right now that's showing me division and product brand. I can tell in my list up here in what we call the navigation pane. And if you don't have the navigation pane, you don't have this little pin icon here, again, I highly recommend you talk to your admin and get a upgrade so you get this in there. But in the navigation pane, I can tell that the things that are in blue are currently displayed in what we call the grid, and this grid-like thing is called the grid. I can tell the next thing in the list is product. So if I was to click on any of these, I would go to product. If I want to go back, and let's drill back first, for example, I can just go back and click on the stuff in blue, just clicked on division, and that went back to division. And now I can drill down on division. If I look up in my navigation pane, I can tell the next thing I'm going to see is product brand. And then after that, I would see products. Now, when I drill down, I have two options. I can drill on an individual item. So I just clicked on the F, I drilled down on my food service division and saw the product brands for that. Or, and now I just drilled back up, and you can drill on that, what we say drill on the header, and that's going to give me the drill down for all of the entities that I have here. So if I click on the word division there, it drilled on both F and G. And if you had, 10 things down the side there, it would drill on all 10 things. And this is a good time to think about, if you're going to drill down on the header, be cognizant of, if you're drilling down to a very detailed level, the order number, product level, from all your ship tos, all your products, you don't want to end up with a display that has 100,000 things on it. No one can absorb 100,000 things. You want to be more focused in your drilling. If you're trying to get maybe an overview of something, drilling on the header is, a pretty reasonable thing to do. Now, the next step here is, let's say I want to drill down on an individual item. So I could drill down, I'll pick, let's say, Farm Fresh. I want to drill down. So on how I did in food service under the brand Farm Fresh, and I drilled down to product there. So you can see I can pick an individual item, and then I can go back to the brand, and I could pick another brand and drill down on the detail there. Another thing you could do is you could click on the header, and this will do all the products for all the brands. So I'm going to click on the header, and now I'm seeing all the products for all the brands. And in fact, I could go and I could do that entire thing, and you'll see I'm drilling down to product, etc. So now I've got all my divisions, and I can scroll through. But what's going to happen if I was to scroll all the way to the bottom? I'm not seeing any totals. And the reason is, if I look up here in the right, these pagination arrows, you can see I'm seeing 1 to 100 of 186 items. Same can happen on columns. In this particular case, I've only got 9 columns, so I'm seeing 1 to 9 of 9. So if you're only seeing part of the data, you can just click on the arrow to see the next page, and that's going to drill down. Now I'll tell you I'm seeing 101 to 186, so I'm seeing everything. The number of rows that's displayed for you is something that's adjustable. So you can adjust the total number of rows that you want to display. By default, I believe it's set to 40. Mine's obviously set to 100. And you can change that in your user options. I'm not going to go to a lot of detail here in user options today, but just be aware there are user options. You can see here, I've got my default set to 100 rows and 50 columns, and you can adjust that. So that's pagination. Up here, when you drill down and you have enough rows that you're not seeing everything, just remember there's these arrows up here, and it tells you right away that you're only seeing, in my case, 1 to 100 of 186. Let's say, though, for example, I want to filter this, and I really only wanted to see a couple of my brands. So whenever you're going to filter something in Stratum, you just go up, I mentioned the funnels earlier, and you can go to the funnel, click on the funnel, and this tells me in this particular view, these are the things I have to filter on right now. And we'll come back around to how you can add to this list. But these are the things that I can filter on. And we know that because they're listed right here, right? These are all the things that are in this navigation pane. These are all the things you can filter on. If I want to filter on the brand, I'm going to come in here. I click on the filter next to brand. And now I can say, hey, I'll look for my farm brands, which are, these right here. I can scroll through my brand to see pretty quickly my 2 farm brands. So I'm going to filter on those. So if I click OK, you'll see it tells me I'm filtered on those 2. Say OK, or if I had other filters I wanted to select, I could. And now I'm going to get a list of just my farm brands, or the products in my farm brand. So I've got products. And of course, as we said, we can always drill back, and you can see here, I'm seeing product brands and just those product brands. Now, one other thing you can do, whenever you've got what we call dimensions here, if you said, hey, but Frank, I want to see customer. I want to see who bought this stuff. I can go up and say if I want that in the rows, or if I wanted it in the filter, for example, just click on the plus sign. So I can go in here and I can find this stuff, and my customer sold to, who did my particular dimensions that you have to have authority to them, but they're all listed here. These are all the different things I have in Stratum. This list will be different for you than it is for me, because this is my specific version of Stratum. But I've selected customer sold to, and you'll see that it added customer sold to after the last displayed thing. Our assumption here is you're adding things that you want to drill to. So I filtered on product brand, and now I could pick one of those brands and I could go see the customers that bought stuff at that brand, right? So there's the list of customers, and then the next thing I'd see is product, because it's here. Let's say though, I really want to see within the division what customers have bought from me. And then but I only want to know if they've bought things in those two brands that I had. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click and hold and drag and drop the customer so that it's after division. So you can see I just dragged it around in this list up here. I can move things around. The other thing is I wanted to limit this to only my farm brands, the stuff we have filters on. So I'm going to take this brand and I'm going to drag it into the filter. That was a lot of moving around, but now when I look at this data, I'm only seeing the customers that have bought data from my farm brands, and this shows me, when this pops up with a window that shows me what I've seen or what I'm filtered on. But the point is, when you have what we call dimensions here in these rows, columns, and filters, you can move them around by dragging them within these three entities and reposition them, whether you want the list to be in a different order, whether you want to remove something, you can click the X, or you can drag them into, say, the filter. Let's then say I drill on the customer here down to products, but again, I'm still only seeing products in that farm brand. What I really want to do is go over here to year to date. You can see my number and say, I only want stuff that was, let's say I only want stuff that was bought over 100 grand or something like that. Or maybe I want top 5 for each customer. Again, I can go to my filter button, because I'm going to filter, and I'm going to filter on data. And here I'm filtering. I'm going to say, hey, that actual sales, January this year to September this year, by the way, it's always September in my demo. So imagine, if you will, we're already in September. I'm going to filter on it. I just click the funnel, and this allows me, if I open this up, I can say top X, I can say greater than something here. Let's say I say top, I don't know, top 3, top 5. How about that? Top 5. So it's going to show me my top 5 products for each customer within these brands. Maybe the other thing I want to do is I want to sort this by the sales for the last 3 months. You can see this column represents sales for the last 3 months. So I'm going to go ahead and sort. So I just go down, I right clicked on that header, went to the sort, and I'm going to sort in descending order, and it's going to sort everything in descending order for me. And you can now see the sort icon. So that was drilling, filtering, and sorting in Stratum. That's some very basic concepts that we have. So you can learn how to get to views using recents and favorites, or using the view menu. You can also search for stuff. You also then, once you have a view, you can run it, you can drill, you can sort, and you can filter. So those were some of the key concepts we wanted to get across today. There's a lot of other features in Stratum. We're going to cover some more in our upcoming class with talking about part 2 of this. But first, I just wanted to let you know about some resources we have. So whenever you're in Stratum, you can click on the question mark button, which you'll see is right up over here in the upper left, and that'll take you to help. We have quite a nice set of help. You can also get to, you can ask us a question, you can send a question to us, you can look at the Getting Started guide. We have a series of videos that'll take you through getting started with Stratum. So a number of things there, and there's a resource page there. You also can go to YouTube and look up Sylvan Software. We have an entire library of different videos that are quite helpful. We have a forum at forum.sylvan.com you can go to and post questions. Other people respond. This is probably more for your admins to get new releases and things like that. And then also you can just go to sylvan.com and go to the resource center. And I'd recommend you go down to the how-to videos. There's a whole host of them there. They're the same videos that you would see if you went to YouTube, but those are a bunch of resources that you have available. Getting short on time. So one other thing, I'm probably not going to be able to open up the phones, but if you have a question, certainly feel free to send me an email or send an email to info@sylvan.com. And one of the things I'd ask everyone or people to do is, if you do have any ideas for what you'd like to see in part 2, these are I talked a little bit about changing the mention order now already, but I'm talking about adding attributes, searching for views, saving a copy of your view. These are some of the topics we were thinking about for part 2 of this 2-part series. Could become a 3-part series if we get enough questions. But if you've got any suggestions on other things you're trying to do or struggling with or would like to see, please give us a shout and let us know. Again, you can contact me directly at frank.bunker@sylvan.com, or just send something to info@sylvan.com. That'll get back to us, or even send something to customer support@sylvan.com, and that'll get to us as well. So